College students overwhelmingly believe that Barack Obama was the greatest president in American history. Then again, these same students believe socialism works and eating tacos in the cafeteria is an act of white supremacy. So there's that. She's Katie, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world, as we honor the men and women who lost their lives 18 years ago today in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. We're drawn to a new poll that finds patriotism, religion, and children are no longer strong values held by younger generations. Plus, a Yale professor says every person she surveyed in Eastern Europe claims life was better under Soviet rule. But we start with young America and their view that Barack Obama is not only the best president in U.S. history, but they believe his impact is far greater than that of George Washington. The fact that Barack Obama is by far and away, the one president who has had the biggest impact on American life, it also makes you wonder. I'd love to ask these kids, every one of these kids who took this survey, this poll, name 10 presidents. How many of you could do it? How many? I'm not sure that my college kids, I'm not sure that my university college kids, if I bumped it to 15, no way.
No.
Name 15 presidents, I said no way.
Well, this is one of the, talking specifically about trying to name 10, this is one of the exercises you do in U.S. history class back in high school. And all you have to do is name Bush. Cleveland. Like, you can just, it's not Roosevelt. There's so many names you can repeat, and yet they can't do it.
Cleveland, they couldn't even find the city on a map, let alone remember he was president.
Cleveland's a city? All right. Well, the specific poll was done by the College Pulse, and they surveyed 8,112 students. So it's not like it was, they just went around and, 50 people, hey, how many can you? No. Obama got 1,744 of those votes. So 22% of all the presidents you could have named give 22% right to Barack Obama.
You know, as annoying as that is, out of over 8,000 students, less than 1,800 identified Obama. Is that crazy for me to have a little hope there? When you think about the degree,
stop.
When you think about the degree to which
he's optimistic. He's optimistic. Everyone look at it.
It was a Barack Obama festival.
Oh, yes.
Everything was it was all Obama all the time. It was, you had kindergarten kids singing, hallelujah, he's come.
Yes.
You've got high school kids dancing and singing because their teachers have made them, because the era of Obama is upon us.
So you're admitting that Obama gave you hope. Hope, Obama.
Hope that 4 years of my life would pass rapidly by, and then it turned into 8. And our long national nightmare was finally over.
All right, well, the next president who came in second, the only other one they could maybe name because that's all they talk about is World War II, is FDR.
And wonder why kids in school would have gone right from Obama to FDR. Radical expansion of government, extra constitutional behavior,
There you go. Maybe.
Radical partisanship in office, and I'm sure those kids were dying for a third term for Obama.
And I want to know if they named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or if they're like FDR.
Right, exactly.
I'm surprised JFK didn't go next. But it was Lincoln who then got, 1,121 votes. That's not too far behind the 1,140 for FDR, so he was close. And then George Washington, who you would think, of all the presidents, they could at least name George Washington. They basically gave him half of what Obama got, so he got less than 1,931 votes.
Well, fighting the Revolutionary War, creating the nation of America.
Pish posh.
Pish posh, Barack Obama was a community organizer. He was an activist. He was a constitutional law professor. Kept a picture of Che Guevara in his office in Chicago. What did George Washington do?
Nothing much. Nothing at all. Just so everyone's aware, current President Donald Trump, I didn't think he would make top 10 or anything. He got 489 votes, which is actually just behind Teddy Roosevelt. And that's a whole 6%.
How many you want to vote that the 490 people who voted for Teddy Roosevelt thought they were voting for Franklin? How much you want to bet?
That or Night at the Museum really influenced them when Robin Williams played Teddy Roosevelt.
What's our takeaway from this? Our takeaway from this is pop culture and the corrupted classroom decides who our kids' heroes are. There you go.
That is basically it. And just as you teased earlier, Generation Z, so those currently basically in middle school and high school and just into college, they believe Obama had a bigger impact
than George Washington
overall. And that's what it is.
That's a Foundation of Liberty and American Greatness flag survey conducted in November by YouGov and commissioned by Flag, the results of which are disturbing. And besides the fact that kids see George Washington as an unremarkable individual, though they know nothing about him, but they are all big on Barack Obama, we find other things too. In this survey, 84% of respondents could not name any of the rights protected by the First Amendment, any of them. 50% could not, or describe, 50% of these kids described America as sexist. 49% described it as racist, which is racist, by the way. 1% more saw us as sexist than racist, which is racism.
There you go. In this specific survey, the Flag survey, was 1,078 Americans, so about 1,000 Americans who are 38 or younger. So it is the full millennials and Generation Z mixed in for those results. So 84%, obviously for me, that's the main one, that you can't name the rights that are protected in the First Amendment. 84%. It's just, I would say it blows my mind, but I already knew.
When you think about the degree to which we've trained these kids to believe that speech that challenges you is hate speech, are we surprised that they can't name freedom of speech?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's not even, we can't even say like, oh, these kids anymore. I mean, age 38, they easily could have teenagers themselves who are then, so generations straight of this nonsense.
And we're back to the takeaway. You've got 38 and 40-year-olds now who are living and voting, God help us, in this country, who don't have the vaguest idea of our history, don't have the vaguest idea what's in our founding documents. We shouldn't be surprised, because of the cultural ignorance we have bequeathed them with our politics in the schools, that they want to rebel against every aspect of traditional Americanism. And that's the plan, right? Keep them ignorant. Don't let them know. Let them actually believe that the president they remember, and all they remember about Barack Obama's run. That's the other thing. You ask them what they remember about Tom, and I've seen man on the street interviews, right?
Yep.
Tell me one meaningful thing Obama accomplished. And they struggle. I mean, they absolutely struggle to name anything at all.
Well, they'll name whatever, hope, change, the buzzwords.
And the one that they'll say again and again is Obamacare, which has been a rank disaster, right? That was his greatest achievement.
It's when you don't want your name plastered on anything.
Right.
Like, ugh. And then it reflects now why in the latest Wall Street Journal NBC poll from just a few weeks ago, the headline read, Americans have shifted dramatically on what values matter most, with a subhead, which I think it should be the headline, is patriotism, religion, and having children rate lower among younger generations than they did 2 decades ago. So,
patriotism, religion, and family. These are the three things that the socialists for 175 years have been hammering, right? Unmake patriotism in the name of globalism, destroy religion as the only, particularly Christianity, as the one real effective philosophy and religion that promotes individualism as opposed to collectivism, and we've seen what they've done to the family, right?
Specifically, of all the people who were surveyed, 61% of them cited that patriotism was very important to them. And you think, okay, good, 61%. But that's actually down 9 percentage points from just about 20 years ago, we'll say. Religion, only 48% of them cited religion as being very important, and that's down 14 points. And then in terms of having children, only 43% placed a high value on it, and that's down 16 points.
Staggering numbers. And you mentioned before that the country was founded on the basis of family and individual liberty, patriotism for the country, and religion. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't be surprised that as a nonstop onslaught on these ideas, particularly in the last 40 years in the public schools as well as the colleges, that the numbers are, the consequences are starting to take place. As again, we said in the last segment, to be 40 years old and to not be able to name a single protection in the First Amendment shows you. And I've made this point on the show many times. I've seen this all since I started teaching college back in the mid-1990s. The idea that don't give kids an accurate view of American history, alongside your politicized view. Don't let them read books neutrally. Don't let them read the great classics and make up their own mind. Because if you do that, you're going to lose this battle. Lie about or just completely remove. Keep them ignorant of our actual history, of what the First Amendment and the Constitution says. Just keep them ignorant. This way, they're much more suggestible because they have nothing to default to.
Oh, it just makes their lives easier, too. Less work for you to have to do to, like, actually respond to a kid who may actually think for themselves. Oh, no, heaven forbid.
Right.
And for me, looking at this as someone who is in this millennial generation who always gets tagged with it, and especially looking at the survey results from 1998, 3 years before 9/11, and then now we're at 18 years post, and to see the drastic difference. Because in my lifetime, in the millennials' lifetime, what is the most impactful thing that happened to us? And there is a stark difference between those of us who actually remembered what happened on 9/11 and those who were much, much younger. I saw it when I went back to college, how the people were about 10 years difference. They had no understanding of 9/11. They don't have an appreciation for what it meant to our country at that time. And it's reflected in these values.
My college kids, now that I'm teaching my freshmen, they were born after the millennium. I mean, so these are kids that were...
They don't remember it.
None of it, no.
Yeah.
And to tie in what you're saying here, and what I had said earlier about how not letting them remember their history is what leads to these negative poll numbers for patriotism, for family, for God. Just today in the New York Times, right? There's an article that is causing a great consternation. The New York Times is blaming the 9/11 on planes, airplanes that, quote, took aim at buildings. The New York Times can't even be bothered to mention Al-Qaeda or terrorism. It's the planes. And you see that attitude with the Second Amendment, don't you? It's not people shooting people. It's guns taking aim at people. Now you've got rogue airplanes, right?
That are just out there.
And hey, in the name of security and peace, maybe we should ban all assault airplanes. What do you think?
I think the AP-747s are going down. Back to this, though, because I want to touch more on the fact that these millennials / Gen Zers, the 18 to 38-year-olds, this 20-year span, 42% of them only cited patriotism as very important. So you can see of the overall, only 42 in that age bracket think it's very important. Less than a third of them actually think they want to have children or plan to have children. Less than a third. We don't even have enough people to sustain life. But
hence open borders, right?
Yes, but climate change. Anyway, and 30%, 3 in 10, cited that religion or belief in God was very important to them. Now, as we spoke, the founders viewed this entire thing as a package deal, but as we learned, they keep them ignorant, so why would they think about this?
The belief in God thing is a bit of a chimera, if you will. It's a bit of a fantasy, and I'll tell you why. Because in spite of everything that's happened to this country, in spite of recessions, in spite of terrorist attacks, in spite of all the things we've had to weather as a nation, everybody still eats, everybody still has their Game Boys, everybody still has their cell phones. You will not see a return. You're laughing at my Game Boy, aren't you?
No one has a Game Boy.
Dated technology. Everybody's got a Game Boy. Everybody's got a Game Boy. What's happening, I think, in this culture is the idea that we have not suffered. Our boys have been at war, our soldiers have been at war for 20 years. Unstopped, unremediated war in places like Iran and Afghanistan for 20 years. And it doesn't affect my college kids. They don't know anything about it. They don't know people who are over there. Nothing had nothing to do with them. And so consequently, until we as a nation revisit suffering, until our cushy, privileged, technologically sound lives are threatened like they were in 9/11. You remember after 9/11, the churches for about 6 months were full again. So I don't necessarily believe this is a generation that has rejected God. They're a generation who don't know God. And nothing points you back in the direction of God like pain and suffering. And I'm not wishing that on our country, but we know from history that it's just a matter of time before we begin to suffer as well.
So anytime we get to bring up campus reform and Cabot Phillips, it's a great day because Cabot Phillips likes to do these man-on-the-street interviews, and he tends to go to George Washington University because he can. And, you know, if it's named George Washington, it should be Barack Obama University, I guess.
Right.
They should really change that. But when he goes to, like, these big universities that are right there in D.C., it's always fun. So he went in July, and he asked students if they are proud to be an American. And let's just check out what they said.
Are you proud to be an American this year?
Nah, not at all.
Do you find yourself proud to be an American this year?
No.
There are so many issues right now that I just can't say yes that I'm proud to be an American, but that's not to say that I'm not fortunate.
I've been prouder, I think. in the past.
Like, I think we do as a country have a lot to be proud of, but at the moment there are a lot more things we have to be ashamed of.
Or what would you say are the reasons that you're feeling that way?
Definitely our current president, because he just... I'm not proud of him.
I can't be proud of a country that, like, elected Trump.
And again, you can see clearly here how their education, their schooling, their professors have completely and utterly shaped for them this narrative. Right? They talk exactly like college kids do. They all hate Trump. Why? What do you know about Donald Trump? Can you name any of Donald Trump's policies? What can you tell me about Donald Trump? Nothing. What can you tell me about Obama's accomplishments? Nothing. But they know that the right thing to do as college kids is despise Republicans in general, and Donald Trump in particular, and Obama is always going to be your bellwether, your bell cow, your leading man when it comes to university campuses, simply because he was born half black.
Well, and for a country that supposedly is so racist and sexist and everything else, to have an African-American male say one of the most patriotic things a person can do is realize there are a lot of problems in the country and be willing to solve those problems and still love their country at the end of the day, we have hope. Again, Barack Obama brought hope.
All right. Hope and change.
Hope and change. But here's the thing. It's not just, okay, well, if America's not the greatest country, well, what is the greatest country?
Yeah,
And let's just... world clip on this one.
I think Canada's is a front runner for greatest country.
Sweden, Norway, some of the more developed countries that have better health care.
I would say Nordic states, yeah. Iceland, people seem pretty happy there.
And that also makes my point as well. How long have kids in college been told that socialism works and go look at the Icelandic and the Nordic countries, right? That proof that communism and socialism works is go look at Sweden, go look at Norway. And so what predictably is the answer? Boy, if these kids had an original thought. I mean, I would respect their disgust for their country. I would accept and perhaps tip my cap to their despising of America if instead of naming the predictable socialist countries, quasi-social countries of Northern Europe, they had said something like Zimbabwe.
Okay, but let's go on to find out, there are better countries out there, ones that we haven't mentioned yet, like the old Soviet Union. That's supposed to be a great place to live. According to one Yale Law School professor named Emily Jane Odell, she specializes, by the way, in Islamic law and civilization. She says in a tweet that she put out in July that all the people she surveyed in Eastern Europe and Central Asia insisted that life was better under the Soviets. So here's the exact tweet. Every single person I asked in Central Asia and Eastern Europe over the past decade and a half has said life was better under the Soviets. 100%. But here's the best part. She then immediately deactivated her Twitter account. This same law school professor also made anti-white remarks in the past. She tweeted after the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. She said, should white men be required by law to attend re-education centers to help prevent mass shootings?
No wonder she likes life in the Soviet Union. Brainwashing re-education camps. See, it all fits right there. I'll bet you the Soviets would re-educate white men in America if you asked them to.
Yes. Well, let's just take a look at recent, headlines, things making news about life under other communist regimes. Mm-hmm. Because the New York Times, they just can't help themselves having to basically retract everything they're writing. The New York Times archives deleted a tweet just on Monday, which was the anniversary of Mao Zedong's death of 1976. And they had called Zedong one of history's great revolutionary figures. Here's the tweet. Mao Zedong died on this day in 1976. The Times said he, quote, began as an obscure peasant and, quote, died one of history's greatest revolutionary figures. Now, in a subsequent tweet, after, again, they probably got a lot of hate tweets coming back at them, they said their previous tweet about Zedong, quote, lacked critical historical context. I wonder why. How many did Zedong murder? How many was he probably responsible for?
That number's small.
Millions? Yeah, the
they
estimation.
Say 45 million. That's a very conservative
this is the
New York
numbers.
Times and that's the thing. He died. He was one of the world's most revolutionary figures who died in 1976, and 45 million at least died before him because of him. But that was an afterthought for the New York Times.
But even if we go back to, okay, well, if life is so great under Soviet control, how many people died during that whole regime, how many millions died? Labor camps.
Yes.
Executions.
But communism is just an idea that wasn't implemented correctly.
We haven't gotten it right
Sweden
yet.
Norway.
We're almost there.
Iceland.
Ha-ha.
Right?
We're almost there. All right, before we go, do you have a deep burning question for Dr. Duke and myself? Well, here's your chance to ask it. Next Thursday, we're opening up the mailbag for our office hours. Simply visit freedomproject.com/askduke and submit your question. So please get them in by Monday, September 16th, and then on Thursday's episode, we will answer your question. As always, please share this episode and subscribe to the free audio podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Just visit drdukeshow.com to subscribe.
And if indeed you do have a deep burning sensation that makes you want to ask questions, try penicillin first. And that does it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, my friends, stay educated.